The White House tackling immigration with a threat from Attorney General Jeff Sessions to sanctuary cities that they could lose federal funding if they don't enforce the laws. Immigrant communities living in fear of deportation, including those not convicted of violent crimes. Is this the start of a mass deportation force that candidate Trump promised? Let's discuss with Democratic Congressman Luis Gutiérrez of Illinois. Congressman, always a pleasure.
Thank you, Chris.
So let's do this a little differently. My suggestion is this, that the Democrats have lost the messaging war when it comes to immigration. There is a perception, even though it is in defiance of fact, that undocumented immigrants are running around the country raping and killing. And cherry-picked cases, whether it's the Maryland rape that we just saw or that terrible murder in California some years ago, they loom large. Do you believe you have lost the messaging war?
Well, look, Chris, here's what I do. I wake up every morning and try to do the best job I can for the greatest number of people. I don't think we have. I think that in New York, Chicago, LA, and in cities across this country, we have mayors and police departments who say we cannot do our job if we lose the confidence of the people we are assigned to protect and to serve. And so they don't want to be immigration agents. And so I'm happy to be on this program, Chris, so that we can clarify some of the mischaracterizations.
Right.
Here's how I see it. Yeah, they call them sanctuary cities. What I would say, Chris, they're Fourth Amendment cities. Why do I say that? If you supply a warrant to the city of Chicago, right, and we will absolutely honor that warrant. But you got to get a warrant. So think about it a moment. The DEA, the FBI, the ATF, they get warrants, right? They go and pick people up. What ICE, which is another federal law enforcement agency, does is it wants to have people detained and wants the city of Chicago to go after people without any probable cause being submitted before the court and without a warrant.
Well, but it's not always that way.
Do that.
It's not always that way, though, right? I mean, sometimes they'll say, if you get Chris Cuomo in your jail system, we have a warrant for him. He's here illegally, or he's wanted for whatever it is that falls under ICE's law enforcement jurisdiction. Give him to us. And it doesn't happen. And the rationale for why it doesn't happen is the one you're offering. We'll lose confidence in the communities. You don't hear that about the African-American communities. You know, you lose the confidence in those communities as well when you are hyper-vigilant about enforcement of law. But you still enforce the laws. You won't do it here. Why?
And here's, it's not that we don't enforce the law. I courteously disagree with you. We will enforce the law. If you supply a warrant, I will tell you they will hold that person in Cook County Jail and release that person to ICE. So you need to get a warrant, right? Because I think that's the basic thing. Don't expect, here's what they do, Chris. What they do is they call and they say, hold this guy. And what we've had is cases in the city of Chicago where somebody is held on Friday, only to find out Monday, after they've been held in jail all weekend, that they're a citizen of the United States of America and should never have been held in that
Mistakes
jail.
are made.
So
mistakes are made. I hear you on that.
But more important is that they're not going after criminals. You have reported extensively in the city of Chicago of Mrs. Leno. Mrs. Leno reported for 12 years. She has 3 American citizen children, an American citizen husband. She's reported for the last 12 years dutifully. And now all of a sudden under the Trump administration, they say she's a danger to society and she has to leave in July of this year. That's wrong. That's
an issue, but it is a separate issue. Congressman, can you tell me, with all honesty and a straight face, that you don't believe that there are cases in this country in major cities that are called sanctuary cities where law enforcement just refuses to work with ICE because they don't want the PR issues, they don't want the added cost issues of holding people, they don't want the extra administrative issues of having to litigate cases that aren't specifically theirs, they're ICE's. Doesn't that happen?
Here's what it really is all about, Chris, is that we live in blended communities. I'll tell you real quickly. So when President Obama came to the city of Chicago, just to show you the depth of this, when the president came to the city of Chicago back in 2015, I took my grandson with me, Luis Andres. And Luis Andres said to President Obama, these were his new executive orders that possibly could give 5 million people legal status in the country. He said to the president, thanks a lot, because now my aunts and uncles can stay. So look, Chris, even in the Gutiérrez household, there are obviously extended family members that my own grandson knows about. Why? Because he has classmates that are undocumented. Because we live in a blended community. It'd be simple to say that we lived in a caste society and those without papers live here and those with papers live over here. There are 5 million American citizen children, Chris, 5 million of them, whose parents are undocumented. We have a responsibility to protect the birthright of those children. And, Chris, let's just fix the broken immigration system so that we no longer have to have this conversation. And lastly, I just want to say, those criminals, those illegal aliens that they talk about, guess whose impact? They're on my community, on my family. I don't want them in my community either. I want the Chicago police, the LA police to enforce the law, put them in jail, sanction them, and if they're here undocumented, to deport them from the United States of America. So let's just be clear that we are for law enforcement, protecting our communities against anyone, regardless of their immigration status. Because you're undocumented, we don't want to say, well, now you're in some special category that the police can't go after you. No, if you are a drug dealer, if you are someone who is doing harm to a community, the full force of the law should go against you.
And on the other side, they say just coming in illegally is enough. But it's a wide-ranging debate. It's going to continue. Thank you for making the case on New Day.